far. It's meant to be a 3-session campaign. But right now it's just a one-shot of around 4 players, all level 8. Just so you can understand where we're coming from mechanically here, because we actually have played with this rule set. So we've got a lot to talk about here. So I guess the best place to start here, for me at least, is the fact that I still hate that they have not released all 3 core books for this revision.
My biggest gripe about that is they directly reference the monster manual that does not exist yet in the player's handbook.
Yeah,
it's irritating, like, because you got the monster manual, which comes out February 2025. The player's handbook came out September of 2024. The DM's guide came out like a month and a half after the player's handbook. So you're telling me that in between the player's handbook release and the release of the monster manual, I have to wait 5 months to actually be able to fully play Dungeons & Dragons with this new rule set.
You know what's also more ridiculous is it's also directly referenced. So I played a druid in this, and we'll talk about what I accidentally made a little bit later. But it literally says in it, for my wild shape, reference the monster manual for additional ones besides the ones in the appendix. And the ones in the appendix are okay. I mean, my druid really doesn't need it because we'll talk about that later because it's quite an experience. But the fact that they reference that and I'm limited on the number of things I can transform into without asking my DM, saying, "Hey, can I use this 5e stat block for my wild shape?" And that can get annoying, especially me also being a DM. Like every time, like, "Hey, can I use this werebear? Let me read it over." Sure.
Yep, that's the thing. I was like, so you're telling me that, like, I get you can't list every possible creature's stat block under the wild shape for druid. I totally understand that. But can you release all the creatures you're going to have capable of wild shaping into in the same book? Is that possible? Can you do that?
That's not allowed.
It's not allowed. Why is it not allowed, Eli?
Because fuck you, that's why.
Okay, I understand. Have a nice day.
Buy the third book when it comes out.
Yeah.
Well, like that's the thing that's really frustrating because I like looked at some of them and I'm like, there are some that are missing from the last one that I would want to play, and some of them that I don't even believe mechanically a druid can go into it, but I don't think they should. Like, you get what I mean? Like, I kind of don't think I should be able to turn into an imp for a druid, even though that is this creature stat blocks that I'm technically allowed to do. There should be a
limitation as to, like, humanoid versus non-humanoid. Like,
there's
imp is slightly humanoid in my eyes.
Yeah, or like some sort of alignment match or something like that. Like, me playing a Quasi, it's much different than me playing like a horse. Like unaligned creatures versus creatures that actually have motivations is kind of like weird, and that's just a general gripe I have with stat blocks and wild shape in general. But it's just really frustrating to just like have to figure something out that makes sense within your character.
And again, it comes back to the point that we don't have to do all this figuring out, and we wouldn't have to do all this guessing and going to the DM about all this stuff if they released the monster manual at roughly the same time they released the player's handbook. Because, like, again, for the most part, you don't really need the DM's guide. It's the least essential book of those 3 core books. And yet, you have the second most important one, what comes all the official stat blocks put together into one book, and it releases 5 months after the player's handbook, meaning that you have to basically wait 5 months either for the book to come out or you have to homebrew your stuff well in advance. Like, it's a lot of work to put on a DM to do that anyways. And so the fact that Wizards has once again disregarded the needs of the DM in the entire book or release of this particular product, to me, is irritating. And it goes back to this theme that we're gonna discuss here with Wizards does not like DMs. They don't give a shit about them.
They put so much on the DM. I remember the first time we were reading this through together that we were discussing, it's like, this is putting so much on a DM, and it's like, David's a DM, I'm a DM, Eli's a DM for different campaigns, different one-shots or whatever, because we all enjoy being a DM and telling a story or doing a big combat scenario. But the problem is, the more I read about it, is like, oh, you don't have to really remember this, but the DM kind of does. And it's like, it's not me playing your character. It's not me having to handhold you through all this character creation and me asking the DM every 5 minutes. I'm like, hey, I think this is how this works. Can I do this? Like when I was making my character, David was right there with me. We were on a Discord call with some of our friends, and like it was literally every 5 minutes. I'm like, is this the way this works? Is this the way I'm interpreting it right? And he'd be like, yes. And it was taking a lot of time. Like it was 3 or 4 hours that were just like going back and forth and discussing things. And my build, it wasn't meant to be complicated. It ended up being super complicated.
In fairness, you're playing a druid. Druids are the most complicated class in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
Yes, but I tried to surround it with simpleness, but it made things more difficult.
Yeah. It's yeah. So I want to take a beat here and kind of focus on some of the positives here in this book, because there's actually a lot I like about this revision in terms of the rules and in terms of the actual way the handbooks are written so far.
The player's handbook, honestly, it's so easy to read, and it's kind of pretty, like, I like the way it's laid out. It is really good for someone being walked through a first-time character.
This is probably the cleanest RPG book I've read in a while.
Yeah, they made it very easy to understand, like, the steps of making a character, as well as, some of the intricacies. There's not a whole lot, at least when I was reading. I didn't get confused too often about any of the wording. They were pretty clear on most things. So it lays out pretty well. It's very clean. The only thing I wish they would do a little differently is in all the spellcaster classes, they have the subclasses at the bottom rather than where you would reach level 3, and then so it's it tells you you're gonna get a subclass, but then later on in the book it tells you what the subclasses are. So it's a little out of order, but whatever.
I mean, I can forgive that though. That's kind of a small
that's just
thing.
That's a real niche complaint.
Yeah. There's a lot there that I think the book's set up in the exact right order. Like they discuss, D&D is probably gonna be the first RPG or tabletop RPG you're ever gonna play. So the fact that they say, okay, here's how this game works, here's kind of the rhythm and the style, here are all the things you need to play it, here are all the basic rules that you need to really get started, and here's a few other things like how combat works, how initiative works, HP, what happens with resistance, vulnerabilities, immunities, etc., etc. Like, they go through all that in a really good way. And it's easy to read. And it's simple to understand. And they don't complicate it too much. I like that.
There's a lot of charts, which I really, really appreciate as a man who loves charts.
Charts, examples, ideas, clarifications, erratas, visuals. They use every possible teaching tool they can get onto the page to teach you this game. And I think that's great.
Yeah, if they would have taken regular 5e from 2017 and just poured it into this book with this new format, this might have been the last edition, truly, because this book is extremely well organized. I'm a process engineer by trade. I like how things flow, and when they flow and they make sense. The only reason sometimes things did make sense is because when you read too much into it, like DMs tend to do. But I really like a lot of this. They leave a lot less out than the first time I was making a character with the Player's Handbook, the OG Player's Handbook.
Yep. And the new stuff that's here in the Player's Handbook, I'm actually quite fond of. There's a lot of things that I think mechanically are different. I actually like that ability scores are now tied to backgrounds instead of species.
Yes.
I think that's a much better change. I think it lets you play kind of whatever you want to play, while also, kind of forcing the player to tie themselves into sort of an archetypical character. I think that's really good, and there's a lot of customization you can do with the backgrounds as well.
Yeah, you could even make your own backgrounds. You could straight up just take the same method that they do, because every background is just, you have your ability scores that you can increase, your feat, some proficiencies, whether they're tools or skills, and then your starting equipment.
Yep.
And from there, you could just build it out however you want.
And I like that a lot of the species, like, they have their own unique effects, sure, but they don't also mandate that you play a certain class with that. I think that's really good. Although
Yeah.
there's a few selections in in the player's handbook that maybe tilt my head a little bit, like Asimar in the basic player's handbook for 5.5e. Really? What?
It's so great. If the character I built for you would have a couple more levels, I would be able to have 5 resistances doing nothing.
Yeah. Like it's so strange to me. Like I'm not even complaining about it. I just find it odd. Like because Asimar aren't particularly intuitive or player friendly to understand. You know, same with something like a Goliath, which what's different about them than a giant? You know, that association isn't immediate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do have a gripe about the background or the species though, and I think we might all have these. Is that there's no half species, and there's no half elves, no half orcs, no half giants, and that just doesn't make sense.
That is a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying like the way they have it set up is good, but they're implying that like there's no cross species. Like half elves are literally the product of like naturally most humans would be attracted to a basically more elegant version of a human, which are elves. I don't see why there wouldn't be any cross species intermingling. I don't know why it's not included.
Yeah, it's a strange omission.
You know, it's also a strange omission.
I was about to get into strange omissions. The fact they don't have the fucking artificer,
Yep. Yeah.
because or artificer, however you want to pronounce it. I have an artificer character in 5e, and I lost the character sheet when my old computer corrupted and is gone. So, if I were to try to make a artificer 5.5, it'd be impossible because there's no changes to the rules that I would need to know about, or, you know, any of the good stuff that comes with this edition at all. So, like, I'm stuck without a class for that one. I can't remake the character in 5.5.
Yeah.
So I have to remake it in 5e. That's fine, whatever. But if somebody were to be like, well, we're going to convert our campaign to a 5.5 because they say you can do that because the rules are mostly the same, it just doesn't work out.
I don't think like here's going into my gripes. I don't think a campaign in 5e is convertible to 5.5. We are talking very different levels of power.
Yep. Yeah. That stems from the addition of like the origin feats and the feats related to whether it be like race or their species or just feats with your
Just general class abilities
Yeah.
are structured so differently, and generally they're more on the more powerful side. Typically,
This brings me actually to my second of the 4 cardinal sins of D&D 5.5e, which is I have some real balance concerns about this edition. And I understand it's meant to be heroic fantasy, right? Where you're playing characters who are good at what they do, 9 times out of 10. Or if they're not good at what they do, they're at least good enough at other things where they can kind of make up for it. But it feels like every class, with the exception of one, has been overtuned a bit too much.
it's to me just like when I was reading through the first time, you went from a lot. Like I'll use the barbarian as an example. The first time I read this through, the barbarian really stood out to me because you took a lot of these subclass specific traits that they would get and put them into generic barbarian, which is fine. But that just increases the power level already. And then when you get to certain barbarian subclasses, like one of them is basically being too angry to die, it's like, well, no, you can't use that anymore because they already have that as every barbarian is too angry to die now. I'm like, well, it's like we're not going to see in these campaigns for 5.5. I don't know how you would ever make a campaign above level 10. I don't know how you would without custom making stat blocks for crazy, ungodly monsters.
And this is part of the reason. Oh, go ahead, Eli.
just to like call it out during the middle of the session that we did with David, myself, and a couple others. David designed an encounter. It was
it was meant to be CR15. I think it came out a little lower than that.
Yeah, the encounter itself was handled quite handedly, to put it lightly because
Efficient is the word, and
Yeah,
that's
we
all of
walked-
us not.
It was a bit of a stomp.
we walked out of there with barely any of us taking any damage.
I think I was the only one who like got hit in a meaningful way, and it was like 6 points of damage. I'm a spellcaster.
Admittedly, you're a druid, but still, like,
Yeah, this edition revamped some of the classes to be pretty more powerful, but others like the ranger just continue to be forgotten.
all right. Do you
the
want
ra-
me to talk about the ranger? Because I've got an entire thing here for this class.
Let's hold up. Let's kind of like that'll be our grand finale because I'm gonna be real. The wizard or not the wizard, the ranger being bad. That's kind of.
I mean, the ranger being bad's nothing new. That's
Well, no.
the thing. So like it's been bad for a while. They've tried to fix it, and then obviously they didn't keep those fixes in this edition. But for the most part, this edition's very geared for martial classes getting a little bit of a power boost, as if they weren't strong enough already. Because I think the big difference is like spellcasters themselves, they can still output a lot of damage. Like they didn't change that at all. But they gave a little more versatility and choice to martial classes. So like, you know, the fighter themselves, you can get like weapon proficiencies and, you know, certain weapon styles that let you fight differently than what you normally fight in 5e. So like it adds a little bit more customizability in the classes. Will complicates them a little further and you have more to keep track of, but for the most part, if you balance those things in your head, the class becomes a lot stronger overall.
Yeah, and so here's me probably gonna go on a feat rant, and this is a guy coming from a guy who actually likes feats.
Oh boy, here we go.
I do not believe, and I'm gonna be firm about it. I do not believe you're like you should get a feat for being effectively a level 0 character, because that presents problems. Like, for example, my druid is only supposed to know around 12 spells. I know an additional 5 plus an additional 4 cantrips on top of what I already know.
Yeah, and this wasn't me being lenient, by the way. Like, I wasn't favoring Sherry in any way, shape, or form. He just chose the right feats to gain all these spells for free.
I have a pretty crazy amount of spells too.
Well,
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 cantrips.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 cantrips.
It's like, I think like 17 spells or something like that.
17 spells.
Yeah.
21 spells. As a warlock, I could use
Well-
2 of them per short rest, but I know 21 spells. 9
So-
of them are prepared. Others just came from feats and subclass abilities.
So I'm going to also say, and this is not going to spoil anything, because it's basically part of one of the subclass, and then the other one is me using one of my original feats. Technically, it's a level 0 feat, which I think is bizarre, but it also means you can exploit things too. So normally, your bread and butter as a spellcaster, especially if you want to be a little more healing, is you have Healing Word. That's usually almost always a spell slot that's taken up.
Yep.
With my first feat, I have that for free now. It's just a known spell now, and I get a free one. And as part of my subclass feature, I have 5 uses of Guiding Bolt, which I can also use and upcast as well. So Guiding Bolt is obviously when you get to higher power, which I believe it's already higher power. I have 5 free spell slots basically for Guiding Bolt, and that is absurd. I do my other crazy things, and then I'll also blow you up. It's too much.
Yep. It's a lot. So, that being said, I want to speak again for the positives for a lot of these classes.
Oh wait, hold up. One more rant.
You're gonna complain some more. All right, let's do it.
Lucky should not be an origin feat, and no one at level 0 should have it.
Yeah, you're right.
Hey, humans got it all the time in 5e. Get out of here. Variant humans take the lucky feat like it's right off the shelf.
Yeah, but you have to. So that is incentive for an experienced player. Most brand new players will just be like, "Oh, I just want to be human," And they don't consider like they could have gotten a feat, because feats are usually for people who've done the normal route and then want to either kind of min-max a little bit or just want to try some stuff out. But Lucky is probably one of the best feats in the game, and I don't think people should have it at level 1 because it's game altering.
I think it's great. I've always been for Lucky being just a feat people can take whenever.
If it's at level 2, I'm fine with that, but like just having it before you even technically have a class just kind of bothers me.
In fairness though, Sherry, like most intelligent DMs are never going to start at level 1 or 2 ever.
Yeah.
Like they're going to start at level 3 because that's when the classes actually activate and when they actually get to do things, and you're only really playing level 1 and 2 if you have a table full of complete neophytes who have no idea how to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep. You take them through a baby little scenario that teaches them the core rules of the game, and then
you level them up quickly, and then you actually start with the campaign. So I do want to also come up with again, I want to go back to my positives for these classes. I think a lot of the reflavorings they've done for them are very smart, and
100% agree.
Yep. Like, I particularly love that the monk is no longer in the Hong Kong action movie genre and now is actually more of you're just really, really practiced at a certain type of fighting. Like, it may not sound that different from the fighter, but it is, because you get, like, okay, you're good at hand-to-hand, but you're also good at, like, say, death, you're kind of a plague doctor of sorts. As one of the subclasses, or you're a sneaky ninja, or you're basically the Avatar. Things like that. I think that's very good. And I also, in generally, prefer the fact that it was buffed significantly. Like, the monk class is definitely a much stronger class than it was in 5e, in which it was probably the second worst class in the game. Certainly the worst martial.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the deflect attack ability because it's very monkeyan. Like, I could see a monk doing this. Not a fighter, a little too brutish, but like someone who's trained their body and knowing how to minimize damage to themselves. Because generally you're unarmored, you're like a slinky little guy. He's kind of like, you anticipate really well. Like, you're really good at doing things.
Yeah, and again, like, I also appreciate the fact that the monk weapons are also gone from the game. That was a needless complication that put a lot of people off monk. So the fact that it's gone and now every finesse weapon is a monk weapon, I think really makes them a lot stronger. There's things like the new bard subclasses I think are really cool and interesting. Like College of Dance especially is like one of my favorite new subclasses, probably my favorite new subclass of the set, because it's mechanically interesting, it's got great flavor, it's just, you can do a lot with it. It's fun. It just does a lot, and it's really cool. Again, there's one class I think that really got the short end of the stick when it comes to this, but we'll talk about them. I already know who they are. But like the fact that there's a general tune-up in the strength of these classes makes it more infuriating to me that the monster manual isn't available, because I don't know how they're balancing around that.
Yeah, because you would think that if these guys, like, if your core players got stronger, then you would have it so that the monsters themselves got stronger too.
I would think that.
So that way it would scale with it, because right now, for all this prep work that you've done for this, you've only used 5 ESAT blocks, so you're kind of stuck hoping that it's balanced enough, right?
Yeah, and for the first encounter, like, if it were a 5e encounter, I think you guys would have had a little more trouble with it. Yep. But I also, I mean, you probably still would have beaten it, but it would have been more challenging for you guys. But 5.5e, you guys swept that. It didn't even take 3 rounds.
Most of us have the mentality of accidentally min-maxing without thinking about it.
Well, that's fine, though. Like, I don't mind that at all. I kind of keep that in mind, so.
Yeah, it's just, like, to me, the hardest part, like, about, like, because if you're a min-maxer, I have no issues with you trying to make a powerful character. 0 issues. I just will tune my campaign along with that, which again harps on the gripe of no monster manual. But the issue is that, like, there's so much to remember. Like, it is like I have like a bunch of documents that I have to keep up and look through to help keep track of my character that I made. It is to try to remember, oh, do I need to use this? Oh, do I need to use this? The new character sheet doesn't help me. It doesn't, it's like I could put down some of my new attacks, but that's not going to help for my reactions I have to take, for how I need to remember this, and this ability procking while I'm making this character. And again, only level 8. There's just so much. This is, I am like, at level 8, I am almost overflowed with the amount of things I have to look at.
Speaking of, like, from the overwhelming perspective, I want to kind of address this game from the viewpoint of a DM who's run the system, albeit only once so far, but I have run it. The new DM's guide is kind of a mixed bag for me, personally. Like, there's a lot of things in there that I think are good for new DMs. Like, things like how to structure your campaigns, how to address problem players, how to introduce players to the game, how to settle disputes. A lot of, like, that social, intermingling that usually comes with role-playing games that is there and is addressed, I think, pretty well. Mechanically, however, and this is like cardinal sin number 3 for me, is the new mechanics that they introduce, I'm much more on the fence about. There's a couple that I want to call out, specifically Bastions. I don't think Bastions are particularly... I see what they want to do with it, and they want to have kind of something for players to spend their money on, instead of just hoarding it like dragons. But the issue becomes, like, they get kind of challenging to manage, and it's not like the most cleanly implemented. It's not the most cleanly implemented system, and it does tend to favor. It goes back to the thing where it's I call it the linear warrior quadratic wizard problem, where it really exponentially favors casters over martial classes. Like, martial classes get like kind of mid lane, whatever, shrug kind of deal, but some of the things that spellcasters can get from Bastions are really powerful. Like, absurdly powerful. And I
didn't even look at Bastions when you sent me that.
Yeah, it's just the kind of thing where it's like, I don't know, man. I don't really know how I would go about this. Excuse me. And I also really hate that there's not enough setting information about specifically Forgotten Realms, which, is kind of the default Wizards setting that they want you to play with for the first time, and they don't really tell you much. They don't really tell you anything at all beyond, like, the bare essentials. And that's fine if you want to kind of flavor the world your own way, but I would think that knowing certain big events and certain major histories would be helpful. But maybe that's just asking for too much, and maybe that's more of a setting core book deal. But I certainly would have liked to know more. It probably would have helped significantly with that kind of thing for new players. Or new DMs, I should say. Because,
my God, I'm just looking at some of this.
Yeah.
Oh, Hirelings 2? Oh, God.
Yep.
My brain hurts thinking about that.
It gets to be a lot. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So, like, and I mentioned already that the GM's Guide is probably the least essential book out of all 3 core books, which is why I'm kind of baffled why they didn't go for the monster manual first and then release the magic items that is actually in the DM's Guide. The only reason for us to even have the DM's Guide, by the way, is the magic items, and they couldn't just release those separately? Really? Like, it's just the kind of thing that's immensely frustrating for me as a DM, is that I don't get the core things that I need out of this particular guide, personally.
Well, and this is kind of the most frustrating part that I just remembered when because we were given access to the magical items for a part of the character build. They didn't even say what these items do. I had to look up a lot of these.
Yep.
Because they're all connected to D&D Beyond, which I don't think you should have to need for a tabletop RPG.
Yeah.
That is my biggest frustration.
I definitely have a lot of beef with the integration into D&D Beyond. I don't like that I have to, and I understand these are also books that you can physically buy and have in your possession. But the issue with that is that, like, I don't want to have D&D Beyond open to run my game. That to me is a problem of the highest order. And thankfully I didn't need it for what we were running, but that's because I had to try very hard to steer clear of that. So that's my rant on the GM guide. Is overall, like, I think there's some good things here. I think the fact, like, again, if you're a new GM who's unaware of how to manage the social dynamics of a table, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how much this book's really going to help you, because it's just the kind of thing you have to know how to do, or you have to figure out how to do through practice. Because every group is different, everyone responds differently, everyone has their own boundaries, everyone has their own style, scheduling, life, etc. that kind of gets in the way of roleplay. Like, role playing is, at the end of the day, a hobby. Never comes before real life, and you just kind of have to have those real life skills, I feel, to really make sense of the social dynamics of a tabletop game. But that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah. This is just me being kind of overtly pessimistic, because I'm just sort of like glancing through. It's like creating your adventures. What I'm afraid of is that a lot of DMs, especially new DMs, are going to actually use this as a crutch and only make their encounters based on these D20 rolls that they make for adventure situations and things like that. Whereas, like, granted, I've been spoiled for DMs. I've had every one that I've been in has been a custom campaign that is built around our DMs wanting to see, like, either put players through things or just has an idea and wants to expand on it. It just seems like, to me, it's good for idea, like, for like using it as ideas, but not relying on, oh, I'm going to do a group of cultists, and then for 5 through 10, we're going to explore a famous ruin or something like that. And it's just, like, it doesn't tell them how to organically make things like this. Like, how to, like, it doesn't feel like it's teaching me how to build the world as much as I would like to see.
That actually is a really good point I didn't discuss at all. Yeah, there's no insight or advice here whatsoever about how to actually make a custom world, which is
weird, because it's weird because the DM's guide in regular 5e has a decent amount of that. It kind of gives you ideas of what you can use, which is what I want. That's like what because we all get creative blocks when we're writing these campaigns that can't just be solved with, oh, we go to the Dragon's Lair.
That's what they want. They want you to buy modules.
Yeah.
I was eventually going to get there, but I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, that's all Wizards is wanting to do, is they want to milk you for more money. And that's it.
They don't want people spending $50 on this book once and never again. They want to sell you on the Curse of Strahd or Sword Coast Adventures or
continuously
Tasha's.
More money out of you.
Well, I'm okay with paying for stuff like Tasha's or Xanathar's, just because they do add a lot of content to the game that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah, if they have a version like that, then I'm sure I'm fine with paying for that.
Or even stuff like Curse of Strahd, which is admittedly a very high quality campaign book.
Yeah, but that's the exception, not necessarily the norm, because Curse of Strahd is one of the highest regarded modules.
Funny enough, I've never gone through a Curse of Strahd campaign.
I'm actually willing to run one. I've been thinking about it for a while.
I'd be down to play it.
It makes it really easy on the DM's part, and I get to put you guys through some situations you haven't been in before.
That sounds fun.
I love it.
Anyways, beside the point. So, I don't hate this DM's guide, but I think it misses too much to where I can recommend it. The only thing really here that's worth taking are some of the items, and magic items especially. And maybe if you're not the most used to DMing, maybe the first 2 or 3 chapters are worth reading through. But honestly, beyond that, I can't recommend it. One thing I do want to say, though, is that the production value for both books is exceptional.
100%. I will not disagree with that. They are great.
The art is fantastic, and it's all over the books, both of them. It's, it looks good. It reads well. It's well laid out. It's easy to follow. There's these, especially for like all the classes, there are these gorgeous splash pages of amazing artwork. And I want to give huge kudos to every artist who worked on this book, because this is just like, what I'm seeing here is just awesome fantasy imagery in general. And there's a couple of these especially that I would not mind having prints of.
Yeah, and it's weird because these are almost so good that they help inspire you. Like, it's weird when a picture just inspires you what you could be, or like helps you get that little bit of extra to help you completely vision what your character is going to be. Because sometimes you're like, I I'm like right there. I can't quite see it, and then you see these pictures. You're like, okay, I get it now. I know what I want. I know what I'm seeing versus what I know what's in my head now.
Absolutely. So I guess our thoughts on 5.5e can't really be complete without the monster manual, which is what makes something like this so frustrating and why the release schedule is such a bad thing, is because I have to wait 5 months from when I get my hand on the player's handbook to the monster manual to really get a full impression of the rules revision as a whole.
The thing that I'm worried about is that there's a lot of mechanics that were kind of missing as DMs for 5.5.
Yep.
Because to try to balance some of this, you're gonna have to get some oomph in your proverbial ithalids. Because if I were to throw some ithalids at you guys, I know you guys can already beat it in 5e. I already know that, but I could probably throw an ithilid at you guys at level 5, and I wouldn't be too concerned.
Yeah.
It's just like there has to be more that we're missing here. Maybe it's a higher lethality environment, but they don't. That's one thing they don't really discuss unless I completely missed it. Do they discuss high lethality versus low lethality?
No, not really.
It's never really brought up.
Yeah, it's like a footnote, maybe, at most, but it's not like a huge part of it. Again, it's the kind of thing that's in the DM's guide, or I would expect to be in the DM's guide, and it probably is, and I'm maybe just missing it, but I'm not really seeing it right away, so...
I think that's really important, though. I think that's like... Because it's two very different expectations for this game.
Absolutely. So I guess, so far, I can't evaluate the revision as a whole, but I can give a pretty definitive thought on both the player's handbook and the DM's guide for 5.5e. I think, by and large, the 5.5e player's handbook is a quality source book, and if you're looking to play this revision, you should purchase it. I think a lot of the changes are strong. I think mechanically they're interesting. A balanced, yes, but it is heroic fantasy. I can take that, so I don't really mind that personally. I'm not the kind of DM that is out to kill players most of the time.
Yeah. Probably my biggest gripe about the power creep is the backwards compatibility.
Yes.
It doesn't really work, especially for like one class I wanted to play, and I'm like, I'd be significantly underpowered.
Yeah,
But
They claim the backwards compatibility, but it's just not there. Like they don't want that.
maybe for some monsters, maybe for a dragon, but
I mean, Dragon
Okay.
is backward compatible with everything. So, what's your thoughts on the player's handbook, guys?
I give it a rolling a 20 to hit, but rolling minimum damage. That's
I
what
have
I
no
give it.
idea what that means.
It's good in principle, misses on some of the execution a little bit.
does a
Like-
perfect pirouette, but then does a jump and lands and rolls its ankle.
Yeah, it's really good. There's a lot good there, but the DM's guide is just abysmal.
Yep, I cannot recommend the DM's guide in good conscience. Take the items, take the magic items, take maybe
So,
a
like-
couple things from the setting, leave it alone.
Like the core rules, fantastic. A lot of good changes there, but those little things make it a little frustrating.
Incredible charts. The data is a little questionable, though.
Yeah, there. That's a good way to put
I
it.
like that.
All right, time to address the ranger in the room.
Yeah, the fourth cardinal sin of D&D 5.5e is that ranger is still complete garbage. Why is this even still a class?
The best archer is a fighter. Again.
Yep.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to say this. A druid, for at least my build, I could function better as a ranged attacker.
Yeah, you probably could.
I mean, most spellcasters could function better as ranged attackers.
I mean, most classes could function better as ranged attackers, quite honestly.
Like me as a warlock, I could shoot a guy from like a quarter of a mile away.
Like, I just want to single out the ranger for its capstone level 20 ability. You make your hunter's mark a D10.
Yeah, that's.
Are
so
you kidding
stupid.
me?
That's like the most underwhelming
That is-
capstone ability.
That is the lamest sentence I've ever read in my entire life.
It's such a spit in the face. You've made it all the way to level 20, staying with only this class. Guess what? you only roll a d10 now for Hunter's Mark. Congratulations.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I'll use the druid as an example. Basically unlimited wild shapes, and you live forever.
Yeah.
Like, are you? I'm just being blunt here, but are you fucking with me right now? Like,
Are you fucking with me, Chef?
are you fucking with? Why are you fucking with me right now?
Yeah. Even like for like Paladin, one of the subclasses, you literally become a walking embodiment of fear. Like everyone looks at you, and they freak the fuck out.
That's
badass.
Oath of Vengeance.
Yeah, that's Oath of Vengeance.
Yeah, it's Oath of Vengeance.
Avenging Angel. What a cool name. The name of the ability is even cool.
Like it's just
Meanwhile,
it's
hunters
so
are
much
just
better.
Like, hunters are like, I roll better dice. Not
Yeah.
even that much better.
And like it's still like 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out for the ranger. Like they're still just a breed of druid and fucking what's the other class? Rogue. It's just like you're not getting the best of either world because
Oh.
you suck at everything.
On the note
Way
of Rogue,
less.
the 20 capstone for Rogue is that if you fail any test, you can just turn the roll into a 20. Once
Yeah.
per long rest.
It's
I'm
pretty
sorry,
good.
Once per rest. It's not even a long rest. It's a short rest. What is
Yeah.
this?
Hey, also, or what's it? That's for monks. You can where'd it go? You can make your dex and wisdom up to 25
Oh my!
for monks. That's
like the-
insane.
It's like,
It's like the barbarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool. I do like that a lot.
The more I read this book, the more I wish I would have made like a martial character to experiment with those rules. Because I just like making a warlock, it just felt the same, you know. So I'm curious as to how the martial characters feel the build.
Oh, they should. Based on what I was reading, they were pretty powerful. I just wanted to try a druid with no consequences.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Makes sense.
Completely valid.
So, yeah, that's so far our take on 5.5e. I'm reasonably sure we're going to go over... maybe we'll do something when the Monster Manual comes out and we can give our overall impressions on 5.5e as a system. But,
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out.
We'll see how that goes. But overall, yeah, I think we have there's a lot of good things here. Production value is A+. The organization's A+. The content, C+, maybe at best.
See for content.
Yeah, C for content. And then DM's guide is just an outright fail, see me after class. Like,
Yeah, what are you doing?
I expect more out of you.
yeah, apply yourself. All right.
Yeah.
So, I think with our long rambling and angry shouts about certain things, I think that'll do it for today's episode. You want to like, follow, comment, subscribe, do all the doobly-doo. Our socials are in the link. You know what to do. Thanks, guys.
What socials?
Not the point. Anyways, I would say Magic's dead, but we talked about Dungeons and Dragons, so I don't know.
Dungeons and Dragons lives on.
I guess Magic failed. At
Competition's dead.
I guess Magic failed at saving throw. I guess I don't know.
The Ranger's still dead.
Ranger's dead. Ranger's dead. It never lived.
Long live the ranger.